Are more expensive paints always better? We get this question a lot. No. Hi, I'm DiClerico. I'm the director of the Home Improvement and Outdoor Lab at the Good Housekeeping Institute, where we test everything related to home remodeling and maintenance. Today, I'm going to be answering some commonly asked questions about painting your home. This is good to know. All right, so the first question we have is, what are the most common mistakes people make when painting a room themselves? So most of the mistakes we see are the results of people rushing the job. Painting is definitely DIY friendly, but you can't cut too many corners. Take color. A lot of people end up with the wrong color because they didn't take the time to test it on the wall first. Color is gonna look different under different light conditions, so you need to test a few options and live with them for a few days to figure out which one is the best. Another mistake a lot of people make is painting the ceiling. If you're doing the entire room, start with the ceiling so that you can take care of any drips that fall onto the walls as you work your way down. So the next question is, what is the key to perfect paint preparation? That's a great question. Inexperienced DIYers tend to rush through the prep process. The fact of the matter is, an A+ paint job, like what you see from the pros, it's about 50% about the prep work. First, you need to start by removing any cracked or peeling paint from the wall. There's a few different ways to do this. We've actually got a few tools here. I like to use a dedicated paint scraper, but you know, a regular old putty knife will do the job just as well. The scraper has a sharper edge. It's gonna help you get under any of that cracked or peeling paint. The goal here is just to create a perfectly smooth surface for that paint to adhere to. Next, you need to fill any deep holes with spackling compound. Your putty knife is gonna be perfect for that. If you don't have these tools, honestly, anything with a sharp edge will do the job. It could be a spatula, it could even be an old credit card. Then you gotta clean the surface. You know, regular soapy water will do the job. Make sure you let the surface dry completely before moving on to painting. And don't forget the painter's tape. Even experienced pros with a really steady hand use the tape on walls, ceilings, and floors and give them a crisp edge and a really neat finished look. All right, next question. Is it okay to skip primer? Yeah, many top paints in our test have a built-in primer. One that I really like is Valspar Reserve One Coat Interior Paint and Primer. There are still times when you do need to use a primer. For example, if you're painting bare sheetrock or if your walls are really banged up. There are times you can skip the primer. On the other hand, there's no harm in applying it, so it's really up to you. All right, next question. How do I know which paint finish to use? You know, finish really affects performance and appearance. You have three main options to choose from. So first up, we have flat paint. It's got a matte finish. It does a really good job of hiding imperfections, but you know, it's a little bit harder to clean. So we recommend it for low traffic areas. Think of like maybe a living room, for example. Second up is semi-gloss. Consider the semi-gloss for doors and trims. It's gonna give you really good protection, and that little bit of shine is useful for highlighting interesting architectural details. Then we have eggshell, also known as satin. It falls between flat and semi-gloss. It's really the most common finish out there. You use it in bathrooms, kitchens, really any high traffic area. It's got a little bit of shine, so it gives you that protection, but it's a lot easier to clean, and it's gonna give you good stain and scratch resistance. Okay, another question here, does paint matching really work? Yeah, I mean, the color matching technology that retailers use has become really accurate. You could even take a color from one brand and have it matched in the paint of another brand. That's a great way to save money and maybe even end up with a higher performing paint. Okay, are more expensive paints always better? We get this question a lot. No, we often see less expensive paints that outperform products that cost maybe 2 or 3 times as much. These fancy designer paints, they're really all about their curated color palettes, but you can take a hue from that brand, you know, go down to the retailer and have it matched pretty much exactly to a less expensive, higher performing brand of your choice. We test dozens of paint brands in our lab, and you know, it's always kind of funny when a $30, $40 bucket of paint outperforms one that costs $80, $100. So yeah, you do not have to break the bank on your next paint project. Okay, which types of brushes and rollers are used for which surfaces? Great question. I've actually got a few here. All right, so a synthetic brush, it's got nylon bristles, gonna do the best job of loading a water-based latex paint. Now that's what's used on the vast majority of interior paint projects. The paint loads really well onto the brush, and as you're applying it to the wall, you can feel it. It's just gonna go on very smoothly. You know, a natural bristle brush like this one here, it's gonna hold too much of that paint. It's fine if you're working with an oil-based paint, but honestly, we don't see too many of those used these days. I love a 2-inch angled sash brush. This is the tool for cutting in corners around windows, doors, where the wall meets the ceiling. This is the brush to reach for. Now let's talk rollers. Rollers are great if you have a lot of room, you know, a lot of wall to paint. It's so much faster than a paintbrush. Rollers with a steel frame is gonna be so much sturdier than a plastic frame, so definitely reach for a roller with a steel frame. When you're shopping for a roller, you're gonna see nap. That refers to the length of the fiber. So a shorter, maybe 1/4-inch nap is gonna be the best choice for most walls, ceilings, you know, standard surfaces. The paint's just gonna go on smoothly, and you're not gonna be left with a lot of marks and streaks. If the nap is too long, it's gonna take up too much paint, and on a smooth surface, that's gonna put too much paint on the walls, and that's where you get streaks and roller marks and, you know, that sort of thing. Choosing the right tools for your projects, it's just as important as choosing the right paint. On to the next question. So how can I preserve my paintbrushes and rollers for future paint jobs? Always clean your brushes and rollers as soon as you're done using them for the day. A lot of people make the mistake of letting their tools dry with the paint still on them. As soon as that paint dries onto the fibers, those tools are kicked. You can do this at the sink or just fill a bucket with water. Next, you want to dry the brushes, give them a good shake, get as much of that water out as possible. If you're using them the next day, I like to wrap them in plastic wrap or aluminum foil. And for long-term storage, I use resealable plastic bags. Next question, what are the best practices to paint over an existing color? If you're painting over a dark color, say you're going from dark blue to beige, this is one of those times where we do recommend applying a primer coat first. You might also need to apply 2 coats of paint, but if you choose a paint with really good hiding power, like the HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams Infinity Advanced Paint and Primer, a single coat should do the job. Another question is, can I paint over wallpaper? You can, but only if it's in really good condition without any cracks or not peeling up in places. In those cases, you're really better off removing the wallpaper along with any of the adhesives that was used to originally install it. One question is, what's the best way to air out the paint smell? You want to start by choosing a paint that's low in VOCs. That's short for volatile organic compounds. These are chemicals that off-gas into the room as the paint dries. That's what causes the odor, but those chemicals can also cause some health issues, you know, eye and throat irritation, respiratory concerns, that sort of thing. Benjamin Moore Aura is one that we really like from our tests. Even if you choose a low VOC paint, you still want to ventilate that room as much as possible. This is gonna help the paint dry and cure and give you that long-term performance. If weather allows, definitely leave the windows open for, you know, a period of hours, even a full day after painting. You can also run a fan in there to accelerate the breeze. We also recommend running an air purifier in the room for a few hours or even a full day after you paint. It's gonna help eat up any lingering contaminants or odors in the room. And our last question, what is the best way to store leftover paint? So make sure the lid is tight, first of all, then store it in a dry place away from sunlight. Ideally, you want the temperature to be stable, you know, in between 60 and 80 degrees. In the right conditions, most paint will last for at least 2 years. Thanks so much for watching. Head to goodhousekeeping.com for more painting tips.